You might be sad that Marvel's Infinity Saga is over, but I have news for you. It isn't. Not when there are deleted scenes that could have totally changed the trajectory of the entire story. Think about it. If you were Doctor Strange and you had access to the Time Stone, would you just watch one Infinity Saga? No, you'd watch every possible Infinity Saga. Seeing as we don't have access to a Time Stone, well, not yet anyway, we're forced to speculate on what may have been had these deleted scenes remained. So strap in, folks, because the Infinity Saga's not done with you yet. Everything changed in 2008 with the release of a little film called Iron Man. Tony Stark literally exploded onto movie screens and changed the superhero game forever. From there, it was a rocky road as the Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2 stumbled forward. Then things got real again when Thor and Captain America the First Avenger delivered the blockbuster two-punch needed to set up the big one. That's right, Joss Whedon's The Avengers, which finally brought the universe together and teased a certain purple meanie from space. Well, he was more red than purple in the pre-Josh Brolin days. With Phase 1 now complete, everyone got a sequel and then reunited with Age of Ultron, which showed the cracks forming in our favorite team. Phase 2 also introduced the Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man into the mix. They probably knew we'd need a few laughs because Phase 3 was gonna get real dark. You know it's gonna be epic when your next chapter begins with Captain America Civil War. And just when you thought that was perhaps too many characters, Thanos wiped half of them away at the end of Infinity War. Then Marvel did the impossible and topped that movie through time travel and teamwork. There's always teamwork in these movies. So Marvel has created quite the crazy tale filled with superhero action and lots of tears. You really need to watch the entire story back to back to get the full effect. That can be pretty hard considering the fact that the movies are spread out. Even Disney Plus doesn't have them all yet. Luckily, Kevin Feige's got your back and has dropped a box set with all the movies included within. If that wasn't enough, the box set features all kinds of deleted and alternate scenes that would have changed everything. So, the first of these deleted scenes is actually one of the craziest of them all. There was no scene in the original Iron Man that shocked audiences more than that first post-credits scene. Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury arrived from the shadows and informed Tony that he was part of a bigger universe. That being said, he was pretty vague as to what he meant by that. Turns out all he knew about at the time was Captain Marvel and the Hulk, both of whom he'd lost track of. The original scene featured Fury getting a lot more specific about the type of universe Tony had just stepped into. He specifically references both mutants and radioactive spider bites. Yeah, that means the original draft of the MCU featured an adult Spider-Man and the X-Men before Iron Man ever dropped out of the sky. That wasn't the last Tony Stark scene that was quite a bit different originally. As you remember in Iron Man 2, Tony used old reels of his father to figure out how to make a new element and save his life. In the original version, Kid Tony jumps up in his dad's lap while Howard makes a message to his future self. While this would have been sweet, it would have also robbed Tony of those father issues that provided so much drama all the way to Endgame. And speaking of drama, Thor almost got in more than his fair share in Thor: The Dark World. You probably don't remember because you watched that movie more than once, but it ended with Thor and Jane reuniting. While this scene was quite the crowd pleaser, things were originally very different. Thor almost broke up with Jane instead. It wasn't anything personal, he just really needed to focus on his career as a king right now. Instead, Jane dumped Thor in a scene that we never got to see, which is frankly ridiculous. Who would dump Chris Hemsworth? That's not the sloppiest storytelling Marvel almost tried to get away with, though. Carol Danvers was hyped up to be the first female superhero to get her own movie, but she almost had a weaker introduction. Avengers Age of Ultron ended with Steve Rogers announcing the new lineup of Avengers. All of the characters were ones who had appeared earlier in the movie. Apparently, it was going to throw a curveball at us by randomly dropping Captain Marvel into the mix. "Who's that random blonde chick?" said every single audience member in the alternate universe where they did that. In Thor Ragnarok, Loki and Thor share a poignant moment with their father Odin right before their sister Hela shows up. It's a sweet scene that informs both of their arcs in the movie. The original one was much more disturbing though. Odin was driven mad by Loki's magic to a point where he was starting to forget both Loki and Thor. And then Hela shows up in New York and strikes the old man down in front of both of them before destroying Mjolnir. But before we continue, let's pull a Doctor Strange and pause things for a minute. If you really want to be a hero, subscribe to CBR and turn on notifications so we can defeat that pesky YouTube algorithm. And if you're on mobile, make sure you turn on your notifications in the YouTube settings. Alright, Strange, you can unpause time now. Zemo in Captain America Civil War is popular for being one of the least comic booky villains ever. He manages to set the Avengers against themselves all without any gimmicks or cool powers. His motivations are also so understandable that you almost feel for him. Well, you would if he hadn't blown up Black Panther's dad within the first hour of the movie. Originally, though, he was going to be a much darker character. There's a brutal scene where Zemo drowns a Hydra agent for the Winter Soldier book. It's pretty heavy, but no one sheds tears for Hydra goons. The original scene had Zemo crashing a black market sale of the book, though. Then he would have used gas to suffocate everyone there and take the book for himself. He wasn't the only villain who almost got a bad guy upgrade either. The Grandmaster may not have been the most despicable villain, but he was almost a larger presence in the movie. Originally, he was supposed to chase down Thor and Valkyrie in his own ship before getting shot down. This gives that scene where he's surrounded by his own people at the end of Ragnarok a lot more context. The real deleted scene explanation we need is for the infamous Hulk busting the Hulkbuster scene that was cut from Infinity War. Hulk was featured prominently in the ads and toys for the movie, but was only shown in the first scene. After receiving a brutal takedown by Thanos, he pretty much chickened out the rest of the movie. This is pretty surprising, considering the fact that he was originally supposed to burst from the Hulkbuster suit as a new Hulk. This was even how they were going to introduce Professor Hulk into the movie. It's hard to attack a movie like Infinity War for not having enough crowd-pleasing moments, but Hulk fans deserved better. While missing a Hulk redemption was sad for us, at least we didn't have to watch two heroes get disrespected simultaneously. Thor has quite the arc in Endgame. He lost all respect for himself after Infinity War, so over the course of the sequel, it was great to see him regain his heroic stature. That culminated in him humbly giving up his place as king to Valkyrie, who had worked so hard for the Asgardian people during Thor's depression. Both of these triumphant moments were almost undercut by Thor trying and failing to sneak a smooch with Valkyrie. What we do want to see is comic-accurate portrayals of villains, though. Everyone was pretty excited when the Supreme Intelligence was name-dropped in Captain Marvel. While it spent most of the runtime presenting itself as Annette Bening, fans were excited for the inevitable shot of its real form. That moment, unfortunately, never happened. What's really sad is that we almost got a glimpse of old Supremo in all its giant green head glory. Originally, it was going to appear to Danvers in this form at some point in the film. Not to hate on Annette Bening, but it's pretty disappointing that she didn't turn into a giant green monster head. So how would all of this have factored into the MCU as a whole? Well, let's reality stone it up and see what this alternate universe would have been like. For starters, we'd have an MCU with mutants. Disney may have finally won the X-Men characters by acquiring 20th Century Fox in 2019, but they could have introduced them in 2008. Fans were pretty disappointed with how Ultron turned out, so maybe Magneto could have been the Avengers 2 villain. The one thing we'll never get to see is the adult Spider-Man that was already swinging before Iron Man. While it's likely that they would have still introduced a new Spider-Man, that seems pretty wasteful. It would have been much easier for them to just bring Tobey Maguire back as an experienced Spidey. This would have retroactively made Sam Raimi's trilogy the beginning of the MCU. We also would have likely seen a very different Captain Marvel than the Brie Larson version. If she appeared in 2015, it's unlikely she would have been played by Larson. She hadn't yet won her Oscar for Room, so it probably would have gone to someone else. We might have even seen the rumored Emily Blunt Carol Danvers come to life. She would have even been around for Civil War. If she was on Team Stark, it's unlikely Team Cap would have been able to escape that airport. If she was Team Cap, maybe she would have been a challenge to Vision. It was kind of weird how he just sat out most of the fight only to cripple Rhodey at the very end. They might have needed her to take on that more vicious form of Zemo who poisons people for kicks. This Captain Marvel would have also gotten to tangle with the Supreme Intelligence that actually looks like the Supreme Intelligence. We also could have gotten a superior Hulk out of the alternate MCU. One of the biggest complaints with both Infinity War and Endgame was that Hulk got left out of his own character arc. Ragnarok firmly established him as a separate character outside of Bruce Banner, so when Professor Hulk was revealed with no shred of the Hulk, it was pretty sad. It would have been so much better to see him at least get one last moment in the sun before Banner gamma-rayed him out of existence. Though we did get saved from Thor getting even more tragedy than he already had. As it stands, Thor had to live with losing both his parents, his girlfriend, his planet, his hammer, and his self-respect. That's a pretty tall order. In the alternate MCU, Thor would have given up his love, only to lose the kingdom he gave it up for. Then he would have had to watch as his sister brutally cut his father from the land of the living. Then, if all that wasn't bad enough, he would have gotten rejected by Tessa Thompson right when he was down. There's no coming back from that. While that MCU probably would have been great, it's hard to complain about the one we have. We love you, 3000 MCU. Don't you dare change a thing. So, what do you think about these deleted scenes? Is the MCU we got better than the one we almost had? You might have to get yourself that fancy Infinity Saga box set in order to decide. Until then, drop all your thoughts in the comments below and do not forget to like and subscribe for more from CBR.